So now we're going to start the discussion with a headline that seems to promise some relief. Now, according to the National Bureau of Statistics, Nigeria's headline inflation rate eased to 18.2% in September, down from 20.12% in August. This marks the 6th consecutive month of deceleration. But here's the context that has everyone talking. While this is a welcome drop, the reality for many at the market is that things still feel very expensive. So this morning, we're doing a deep dive to answer the big question. What does this statistical decline truly mean for the cost of your bread, your fuel, and your family's budget? So to help us analyze the numbers and the realities, we are joined in the studio by an economist, Tefa Ibrahim. You're welcome to this program, Tefa.
Thank you very much. Brilliant.
All right, thank you. So now, there's a ease in the inflation rate, but Nigerians do not seem to be feeling it. So why is that? Why do you think that this is happening?
Okay, thank you again. So first of all, the reduction in inflation from above 20 to below 20, that is 18 now, is a commendable direction in economic policy. It means that the race for single-digit inflation has begun. Before now, we are doing 20 and above, which is pure double digits, very strong double digit. But now that we're on 18, 9 digit is closer. In other words, where the race for single digit, like I said, is closer than it was when it was above 20. However, inflation alone cannot be used to measure the cost of living. So the experience people get when they hear that inflation has reduced and the impulse they want to have by immediately comparing it with the price of goods and services that they are buying today is not a compatible one. Inflation is just one aspect of cost of living. When analyzing cost of living, or you are comparing the cost of living between states in Nigeria or across countries, cost of living is measured with inflation, yes, with the value of the country's currency, the purchasing power, cost of healthcare, access, other cost of energy, and other costs in general. So inflation is just one of it. So that inflation is reducing is a signal that if the cost of other components increase and also decrease, our experiences with the strength of our purchasing power, the strength of how much people pay for housing, transportation, education, all these other aspects, if they reduce, that is when cost of living reduces and people begin to feel the impact on reduction in goods and services across the country. However, for some states where the reduction in inflation is telling directly on a particular set of good and service that is prominent in that state or in that location, even in the FCT, for example, or Niger State, they will experience reduction in the price of those goods. But another state may not have the same experience. So this reduction in inflation may trigger reduction in the maybe cost of bag of rice, maybe somewhere, let's say Suleja, but that same reduction may not be experienced in maybe Mokwa, for example, or maybe Agaye or somewhere in or somewhere in Bida, because of of what I said earlier. The inflation, don't forget, inflation is defined as the general increase in goods and services of a basket of goods and services over a specific period of time. In this case, August to September. So that general means that just imagine a basket that is loaded with different goods and services. Don't forget that. And then you find their prices, how they've changed over time, and take the overall average to get for the country. So that's how it's arrived at. So the general picture that inflation has reduced is a macroeconomic aggregate reduction, but it may not tell the specific story of a specific states, local government, communities, wards, or villages. However, reducing from 20 to 18 is a good sign that overall our economic health is improving and the race for single-digit inflation has begun.
All right, so the current administration is, saying, or should I say, claiming that their policies are working. How, especially in terms of stabilizing the economy, how has this drop in inflation, validates the claim that they have?
Okay, so generally, the reduction in inflation is a signal that whatever policy the government is doing is heading in the right direction. That's what it tells. And another thing you have to look at is the exchange rate which is also improving in value, coming down from 1,005 something, 1,049, 1,048, and declining. So if you use these two monetary economic variables, it's a sign that whatever the government is doing in terms of policy, truly speaking, is in the right direction. But for inflation, even though it's in the right direction, Nigerians need to understand that the reduction we are experiencing in the reduction in consumer prices is as a result of the rebasing that happened. Rebasing means that the weight of, remember initially I said inflation is calculated using a basket of goods and services. Rebasing means that they changed the base year from 2009 that we used to compare inflation, current prices, with a base year, 2009. That base year now has been replaced with 2024 as the base year. So we're calculating current change in prices using 2024 as base year. So that's comparing when prices of goods and services were high. Remember, 2014 were still the impact of price of goods and services increasing has started already. So now we're comparing 2025 with 2024. So we are basically, so one of the advantages rebasing has is that it helps to have a correct reflection of inflation in the current regime, 2025 against 2024, which is the base year. Now, another thing that rebasing does is it includes new goods and services in the basket used to calculate inflation, and also adjust the weights. For example, right now, it adds digital services, it adds maybe other services that Nigerians are now using, and then maybe increases the weight that is used in computing the consumer price index of these goods, and then perhaps reduces the weight for food. So you can see it's more statistics, econometrics, mathematics coming together to use data to just help the current administration find their understand what things are saying in real time. So that's what the rebasing means. So this administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in terms of the economic policy, the impact of inflation is that the improvement we are seeing in inflation is as a result of the rebasing that happened by changing the base year from 2009 to 2024. But inflation is just one component of overall cost of living. The same energy needs to be put into addressing other components like cost of education, healthcare, transportation, energy. All this band A, band C need to be wiped out and harmonized. So that, because imagine if band C is paying lower, for example, for electricity, but there are more people in maybe band A and B. If you pull it together, it will look as if the price reduced or increased, but the experience of different people in the three bands will be different. So beyond inflation, we need to address issues that tell on cost of living, like the transportation costs that farmers experience moving goods from farm to market, like the feeder roads, the road farmers use in harvesting, in shipping or moving their goods from farm to market, and then the experience also that these truck people that help us supply, the supply system of food nationwide also needs to be addressed. So that the context is that you need to address other factors to enable inflation translate into reduction in the cost of living. Yeah. Okay,
now what policies can the government implement to ensure the inflation drop benefits all segments of society as an economist in an economist viewpoint?
Okay, from an economist viewpoint, the policy to implement to enable this reduction in inflation have impact possibly on other sectors is multi-dimensional. In other words, the first thing is it's important to understand that while inflation is an economic growth variable measured in short term, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, within this period. The variables that Nigerians want to see reduce may not be short-term variables like inflation. For example, inflation is reducing in 1 month, and then we want to see it affect cost of housing, for example, the expense we pay with house rent or building or other aspect of life. So inflation is short-term, while the other aspect is long-term. So for government to understand that the more inflation is reducing as it is now, which is good, the more government need to step up its social intervention program so that the government can help the country catch the momentum of now that inflation is reducing, let's help more people, poor and vulnerable people, have more access to cash transfers, access to loans for those in small businesses. And when I mean loans, I mean real low interest, nearly zero interest loans that are existing already as powered by Ministry of Trade and Investment through SMEs and SMIDAN and others. So I don't know if you get the point. The point is that for the government, now that inflation is reducing, increase your effort on social intervention program, helping small households, small businesses to grow and to overcome those challenges that face that is affecting their growth, that is making their growth difficult. Just imagine that, let me use an analogy. A child that is struggling with mathematics, all of a sudden begins to improve in mathematics when they change the teacher. And then the next month, the parent removed the child from the school. Yeah. So the school has done their best by replacing a new math teacher, but the parents have removed the child from the school. So not in this case, what do I mean? Inflation reducing is a good one, but the government should not just hands off and say, oh, inflation is reducing, so let's allow the economy stabilize itself so that people can benefit. But rather, let it signal to government that now is the time to even help small businesses the more, help poor and vulnerable households the more, help farmers get access to farm inputs the more, help women, smallholder farmers, help young people also get access to credit, also help landlords association have better experience with importing whatever they need to, component of import they need to build, so that they too can begin to have the signal to reduce the price of the services they render by way of healthcare. Also help hospitals as well to have better experience with importing the component of medicine they import or whatever they need in that sector to help them reduce. In fact, for the government, this reduction in inflation is a good signal. In fact, I expect, like you rightly asked, what the government needs to do, I expect a strong stakeholder meeting right now between the federal government, state and local government, so that everybody begin to operationalize this renewed hope agenda. I've been saying this thing. Renewed hope agenda is prominent at the federal level. The state need to adopt the same thing. Local government need to adopt the same thing. The same way Obasanjo's era did needs National Economic Empowerment Development Strategy. State did SEEDS, State Economic Empowerment Development Strategy. Local government did LEADS, Local Government Economic Empowerment Development Strategy. And these are documents that we saw and we could analyze, and government and CSOs and NGOs could key into to help implement the needs, the seeds, the leads as at that time. The same renewed hope agenda that we have now, it's like our medium-term plan under the Tinubu's administration, connecting to the long-term plan, which is the Nigeria Agenda 2050, which is, both of them reflect in the annual budget that the federal government call Appropriation Act and state government call Appropriation Law. So it's important for states and local government to also replicate. In fact, I look forward to seeing renewed hope agenda, state perspective, renewed hope agenda, local government perspective, and more. Lastly, these states and local government need to do more to identify the poor and vulnerable households, and as well as businesses and stakeholders who are struggling with experiences in the other component of their businesses that inflation alone will not reduce. Remember, I said the reduction in inflation that we are gaining, just like the Nigeria Bureau of Statistics also said, is because we rebased. But don't forget, the advantage of rebasing is that it tells us indeed that prices are reducing. But the price that is reducing now is not for rice only in Sokoto, or rice only in Benue, or rice only in Rivers. It's rice pulled together, added with beans and other services, digital access, other services in general. And then their prices weighted differently, and the average pulled and measured September, August on September. So this is the general picture, but state experiences will be different. So every state, look into your own inflation data. For Rivers, the inflation may be higher. For maybe Niger, it may be higher. But for other states, it will be lower. Look into your states and begin to see what you can do as state and local government to help address other components that affect cost of living, because inflation is just one of it.
Yeah. Okay. So the decline, do you think it could, sort of increase foreign investment and confidence in the economy?
That's a very good question. The way inflation works when it comes to, when you're interacting it with investment, is that investors, whether domestic or local or foreign, I beg your pardon, they will look at the inflation, which sector, or in other words, which supply chain is driving inflation. In other words, they will define inflation in that context as where do we have a situation whereby there is demand more than supply? Because increase in general in demand over supply also can create inflation. So investors, that's how they will look at it. So as me and you are analyzing inflation based on food prices and our experience in the market, that's not how investors look at it. Investors are looking, which sector do we have more demand over supply? So that's how investors will look at it. So, and what that signals is that if you look at the inflation report, the sector that has the highest inflation is where there's demand over supply. So it will begin to inform how they mobilize capital into that sector to invest. And when mobilizing capital, they will not just go to a particular state and maybe just go to there and start investing. When they land in that state, they'll still look at the ease of doing business for the overall country and for that state in particular. They also look at peace and security. They look at the bureaucracy in that sectors, because every state these days has, maybe like Benue State now, Benue Investment, BIPC, Benue Investment Promotion Council, exactly. Every state has this IPC, Niger State Investment Promotion Council. So every state has one investment promotion council or the other. So how those states also help these businesses to register and begin business in time is what the investors also look at. And after doing all this, they also look at local governments. In other words, where do they operate? How they choose where they will operate? They look at places where electricity supply doesn't have challenges, where working at night and working safely is guaranteed, where there's better housing access route. So you can see. So investors are seeing that there's investment opportunities in the country due to our reduction in inflation, but they will still be looking for the area where they can plow back profit faster. So that's why you find certain states having rush for investment more than others. So for all 36 states of the Federation and FCT, it's important that we all address insecurity and then understand that investment in our states benefits the people and help the government achieve their agenda. It's important. When Sir Ahmadu Bello himself was initiating Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, but if you read the books, that time him and KIL, Kashim Ibrahim and the rest, he said, let's make Ahmadu Bello University a center of education that can attract the best teachers and the best lecturers. Some of his followers said, but if we attract these people, how about their lifestyle that is not consistent with our own? He said, create a place for them and leave them there. Let's put more taxes and find a way to regulate. This is how states must begin to think. Otherwise, the more we make our state less investment attractive, you will have even the big spenders, big time spenders. And when I mean big time spenders, I'm not talking abstract. I'm talking even the children or the creme de la creme of Kanu, of Sokoto, of Borno, when their daughters or sons want to do real big graduation parties or birthday parties or very big occasion, which state will they go to? Some might even take it all the way to Dubai, because in that state you may not find a place. This little thing is what drives investment. In economics, consumption matters. For example, if somebody in Zaria, for example, now wants a place where they can have an experience of big swimming pools with very high-class celebration without disturbing their neighbors. Which hall, which event center has a place like that in Zaria or Kano or Kaduna or Benue or anywhere that the people who want that kind of lifestyle can have it without the noise going out to disturb the neighbors? You find that it's hard. And then you find out that even when they have, the access road to that place is challenging. So state governments, please invest and make your state attract investment. It's our young people that will benefit. Imagine very bright, sharp people, somebody from Gombe, for example, or Jigawa, a very young boy, a young girl who has developed ICT skill. After all that ICT skill, guess what the person is thinking about? How to move to Lagos. Because in that state, there may be no place to effectively employ that person. Or young people who can do very good videos. You can even Kannywood now is losing videographers or cameramen to the other part. So you can see how these things affect. So look at the society, look at the aspect of your society, of your economy, that the inflation is higher. What does that signal? That demand is more than supply, and be deliberate in attracting the right investors. Because if general investors follow the inflation signal and come to Nigeria, they will use their own choice, discretion to go to where favors them. But states can do a lot by reducing the ease of doing business and helping these businesses also start up easily.
All right.
Okay. Do you have a question?
Okay, so I wanted to ask, what does this trend say about the central bank's current approach to balancing price stability and growth?
For central bank monetary policy, is the life wire, and inflation targeting is their bread and butter. In fact, there's nobody that is celebrating reduction in inflation right now than anybody working in central bank, overall central bank, generally speaking. Now, for central bank, remember, inflation is a money, although it's debatable, because remember this inflation, anything inflation, most times, one cannot avoid sounding academic or lecturing or technical, because it is indeed a technical matter. There's debate amongst economists from Usman Danfodio University, Sokoto, to Ibadan, to Zaria, back to Ife, Unilag, or BUK, everywhere. There's debate among economists whether inflation is a monetary phenomenon. And from Milton Friedman till today, we all argue that inflation is a monetary phenomenon. But as the structure of an economy changes, as food inflation begins to take dominant share of inflation, which is affected by climate change, flood, other variants of climate change, insecurity, economists are debating, and statisticians as well, all researchers in that space, whether inflation is a monetary phenomenon or not. In other words, whether inflation is caused by monetary policy switches in demand and supply of money or not. But for why academicians, why monetary academists, why economists can argue that one academically, for the Central Bank of Nigeria, inflation is a monetary phenomenon. Because once they lose that belief that inflation is not a monetary phenomenon, it means the CBN's ability to stabilize prices through their control of commercial banks will weaken. Now, and that's the idea. And for central bank, this is how inflation works. Once inflation is high, they reduce the supply of money to mop up excess liquidity. Once the inflation is going down and there's need to stabilize, then they increase supply of money so that it will, how will I put it now, liquidate the economy. But when doing that, there's a strong coordination between monetary and fiscal policy. Now that inflation is high, CBN will stay on the tight path of monetary policy, being careful or showing delay or reluctance in reducing overall monetary policy rates, and also being careful in allowing monetary policy to become loose. Because on the fiscal side, remember I just said earlier that now that inflation is going down, the government should increase social investment program. That increasing social investment program simply means increasing more money. And for central bank, that is a monetary policy risk. So that coordination is important. So what it says about the central bank, other Yemi Cardoso and his team, is that central bank policy on monetary policy and inflation targeting is working well. That's what it tells. It means they have a strong control on all monetary aggregates. They have a good research and focused on cash reserve ratio, on monetary policy rate, they understand clearly money supply and money demand dynamics, and the Monetary Policy Committee and the Monetary Policy Department and the Research Department, central bank is interrelated. Every sector, the output from one department or directorate feeds into the other. So, but overall, under the umbrella of Yemi Cardoso, the reduction in inflation is a very good sign that CBN monetary policy is on point. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Tefa Ibrahim, for coming to dissect this inflation topic with us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tefa, for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much.